All right. Happy Thursday morning, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. If you are so unfortunate as to be watching this on YouTube, I'll start shaving when we get a huge amount of subscribers. Most of you currently are listening to the audio version, and I'm just still in the audio first mindset, but we are posting this to YouTube for those of you who like to listen to podcasts on that platform. Okay, so we got a great one for you today. Today, I spoke with an agency owner who's going to share his story very transparently. He is doing around $300,000 in revenue and has a goal to get to $1 million. And we're going to talk about some of the ways he's gotten to where he's at and where he's headed and stuff. But just at the top here, I wanted to talk about something that jumped off the page in this conversation to me and something I've been thinking a lot about lately. It's simply this, that in the case of today's guest, there's only really a handful of people on the planet who fit the ICP. And of those people, he only needs to bring in a handful of them as clients in order to reach his goal. And so then the question becomes, we're getting laser targeted. Who are these few handfuls of people? And how do they make decisions? And how can we reach out directly to them? And what are some frameworks for thinking about this? Lucky for us, there is a famous one that a lot of listeners of this podcast have used incredibly successfully. I want to share it with you today. You can find the rudiments of it in The Ultimate Sales Machine by Chet Holmes. Now, I've also created a template that you can download wherever you're listening to this and just take a look at how you would build out a plan to systematically, and as Chet says, ruthlessly build a relationship with the key people who have the power to help you get to your goals. This is also something that Vern Harness shared with me. This is something that's not often talked about, I think, because it feels hard. But that's why we're going to build a system for it. You're not going to have to do all the work, and it's going to be highly effective because most people just won't do it. They won't do it. And so when you take a look at the template we've created, it's like, all right, I'm just going to plug in the values here, put a cost to each of them and figure out how this can go to work for me. So what is it? It's simply this. Building relationships with people isn't about posting on social media, right? It's about having conversations with them. And it's about having more conversations with them and longer conversations with them. So how do you do that? Well, you can't be selling them all the time. You have to be teaching them some of the times, or maybe sharing with them or commiserating with them or talking about a topic that is unrelated to business. Well, this just feels like, I don't know, easy networking or something. So how do you systematize that? Well, Chet Holmes and so many elite companies systematize it. We have a bunch of forms of contact. It could be anything from, hey, a friendly text message, an invitation to do something fun. It could be a signed book, something you love. It could be just sharing helpful content. It's also, I will add, a very interesting litmus test. If you're going to post on social, you can ask yourself as a framework, would these key 10, 15 people read it, right? Like, it's like, I'm only going to post on social the stuff that's going to appeal to these people because I want to get them to start making a decision about our firm, about me as a person, about the types of concepts we're thinking about. This sort of framework can really help guide the content that we're then creating for places like social. And we've talked about this through a bunch of other means, right? With the YouTube stuff we've been talking about past year, it's like, you don't need a lot of people to watch your videos to make a big difference in your business, but it does matter how you're framing the content and who you're speaking to. So in the case of today's case study, and I think in a lot of our businesses, high-level decision makers, are they like looking at an Instagram post and making a high-level business decision based off of that? Not as often as maybe they're looking at an HBR article, or they're reading a book, or they're talking to a trusted friend, or they're meeting somebody at a trusted place, or often it's something like they're reading a white paper or industry trends or statistics. So if we know what's shaping their decision-making process, then the question is, how do we systematically become a part of it? And that's the challenge on the template. Okay, so how many times are we going to reach out to this person? And what are the topics, methodologies? And the key thing, and Chet talks about this, is we want to change it up. We don't want it to feel like a plan to the prospect. We don't want it to feel like a funnel. In fact, because we're not talking about a lot of people, we want it to be authentic. Like, these are interesting people making interesting decisions that you're vested in. How might they do that? Do they understand the trends? Do they read the critical book? Are they going to the great event? And the key thing is putting this thing on rails so it's happening regularly and often. This is something that could be done by an assistant or somebody on your team. And that's the idea. Hey, it's Christmas time. A gift has showed up. Hey, I'm getting started with Q1 planning. A helpful email showed up. And this is how a lot of elite companies build a network of decision makers and clientele that are able to be a part of bigger deals. So if you're cutting bigger deals and you want to cut bigger deals in your company, this episode and this template we've created is an opportunity to reflect on what that could look like for you. And of course, the Ultimate Sales Machine is an excellent resource if you want to go even deeper. Okay, I think I've set the table enough here. I want to share with you today a story of someone I had a real pleasure speaking with. His name is James Feng, and he founded a company called Real Digital, which is an Amazon agency based in Taiwan. Like we said earlier, the revenue is right around 300,000 right now, and they have 8 people on the team. And get this, they have an office in Taiwan. He's going to tell the story about why they did that. And I think it's interesting for so many of us who want freedom, we want remote, but sometimes we have to face the facts of the industry or the niche or the clientele we have. And in the case of James, that office turns out to be a critical piece of the whole thing. His goal is to get to 1 million in 2 years. So that's sort of the frame of the conversation. And it was a good one. I hope you enjoy it and that it helps you reflect on maybe we don't need to have such a balanced marketing diet. Maybe what we need to get is laser focused on our ICP and who are the relationships and clients that are really going to move the needle. And then what is the appropriate system to build those relationships? That's the punchline of the Ultimate Sales Machine. And the punchline for so many of us listening right now is that will be the fastest way to get to our goals. And when a lot of us are feeling pressure to build funnels and build audiences and all this kind of stuff, the reality is for so many of us, it's a more targeted approach that's going to be the fastest way to our goals. So with that, I'll roll the conversation with James.
My name is James Feng, and I have an Amazon agency, a local one here in Taiwan, and I live in Taipei. Originally, I'm from San Francisco. And I have a film background. So I've been doing branding film for a lot of big brands for many years.
You were this media guy. How do you compare your trajectory versus the version of yourself that would have done the film thing in LA or the tech thing in San Francisco?
For me, I'm someone who likes to evaluate every situation. And always when I make decision making, it's always about making the right move. And then taking calculated risks I'm not like one of these guys that's just going out taking risks for no reason. And for me, I think definitely it's about like what it is that you actually like, what kind of impact you want to have with your life. And to be honest with you, like looking at the life that I left behind in LA, I have a lot of friends there, who pursued the film career there. And in San Francisco, which is more corporate stuff. It's not really, there's not much of a film community out there, more like art films and that kind of stuff and not commercialized. So those were not options I wanted to explore. And I just feel that, I had a lot more to offer moving to Asia. And I lived in Shanghai before, as well, and did the film thing over there. And then, now moving in Taiwan, I think when an opportunity really kind of presents itself to you, a lot of times you have a choice, like, what do you want to do with it? And for me, I was doing the film thing here. I was like doing great. I was doing okay. But then I think when the opportunity, when Amazon came, I had to make a decision. Like, it's almost like a pivot. And I think the way that I look at it is, at the end of the day, do you want to be an artist? Or at the end of the day, like how much money can you make doing films? And what's the cap at that? And those are things that I was evaluating. And now if I want to have a family, a very comfortable lifestyle, as a single person, I would say I would have been fine. But now you're talking about a family and you want kids and you want all that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, the life of a filmmaker, financially speaking, wasn't really going to cut it. And so the Amazon business came and I saw, how everything was done here. And I was like, yo, man, I know what my skill sets can bring, to the table here in a country where they didn't really know how to market themselves, the products, the pain points. their selling points. Like they just didn't know. And so I was like, all right, I have something to offer and I want to offer it. And I didn't have the Amazon arm at the time. So when my partner came through, it was like the right timing. It was a lot of serendipity. And so, we've been at it for, a few years now, post-COVID and post-COVID, like that was not easy to restart. It's almost like you start a company and it got shut down and then you had to restart it. And a crazy story was like when we restarted, we didn't have an office, man. Like we did not even have an office and we were literally taking meetings in like coffee shops. Now, see, the thing is in Asian culture, they care about the face thing, right? So face is all about how you project yourself. Like, are you wearing a fancy watch? Are you dressed nicely? Like what you got? If you don't got a reputation, you kind of need to fake it till you make it. And so at that time, we had a few clients, not too many. And I was just like, you know what? We got to get a damn office.
Well, importantly too, like you identified like a key challenge there, which is like it wasn't like some vanity thing. I mean, that was the hurdle to overcome. Let's talk about the business. So you guys have an aggressive growth goal for the next 2 years to essentially double year over year. So why?
Because I feel like we have the social proof. So now it's just a matter of like, I just need more at-bats. Because the way I look at it, like our conversion rate's around 50%. So every 2 people that walk in here, I'm closing one of them. And that really gives me the confidence, and to know that everybody that literally walks out of here, like has confidence that we're going to do right by them.
Well, there's 2 things that like jump off the page with me with agency scale to get to 7 figures as fast as possible. First is charging more with better clients, like the thing that jumped off the page to me and it is like, if you're closing 50% of deals, maybe pricing's a little low.
Yeah. So we actually did adjust our pricing.
Okay.
And so we already adjusted, I would say 2-3 times.
The other thing I was thinking about is I just love this like kind of image of this ICP and the relationship between outside agencies. I just wanted to press into that to see if that's true for all of the decision makers in a process like this. Might they care about, sometimes when you get into the middle of the org at larger companies, they'll care about something like keeping their job, looking good to their boss. There might be like other motivations that you could target in on, like, say, for example, I'm the head of Amazon at a large brand. I know if I bring you in, I'm going to look great. Maybe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Have you encountered that a little bit?
I mean, absolutely. Like you have some really hungry project managers that really want to look good. And a lot of times they are the decision makers or they have a huge influence on the decision making because the owners don't have time to filter out. And so in these situations, when I do pitch them, I'm very American style, straightforward. I don't really beat around the bush. And so I tend to just really rely on like the fact that I know what I'm talking about. And then also I let the results speak for themselves. And our business model is formulated on performance. And so most agencies here are the other way. So they're all like trying to sign 1-year contracts to lock them down to basically milk the monthly fees. And so I think we're the only company that does this particular model. And I think that's why after people compare apples to apples, they're like, whoa, you're like the only agency that's out here doing it this model. And wow, you really minimize our risk because you only charge for 3 months. And if you don't work out in 3 months, I don't owe you that much money. I'm not tied down to a 1-year contract. So that's the kind of confidence that we kind of really just try to exude to show them, yeah. And by the way, you're not just hiring us. We're also figuring out whether we want to accept you. Like it's a criteria thing and we may not want you. Right. And so I think that really kind of sets us apart from everybody else because all the other agencies are just like literally fighting for scraps where anybody that walks in, they'll sign a 1-year contract on the spot.
It seems like an important element of your business is that face, as you described it, like the way people see you on the island, like these are the dudes. What is that next level of unlock?
Is becoming the number 1 player here in Taiwan. And what does that look like? I want to have the top accounts. I want to be able to say, I am the number 1 agency here in Taiwan. And how I define that is I have 20% of the top accounts in Taiwan.
So there's a lot of clarity from your side. There are just a few handfuls of people that are going to unlock this. So to me, it feels like I'm wondering a little bit about your digital strategy versus your IRL, because it seems like a lot of just you being in Taiwan is a lot of what's made this business. I'm assuming you have a list of, you mentioned different lists out there. It reminds me of this Chet Holmes book, The Ultimate Sales Machine. It's like, who are those 50 people who can change your agency? How many gifts have they gotten? How many calls have they gotten? How many times have you had coffee? How many times have you played racquetball with them? I mean, if you're talking about like webinars and Google ads and YouTube ads, I'm wondering if the play here isn't just for James to be man on the town with a whole, it's like a Rolodex hustle, here are the 50 names. Here's how often we reach out to them. Here's what the personal relationship looks like. What do you think of that versus the digital side?
Well, I mean, I definitely think in this day and age, the digital is like just rhetorical. You have to do the digital. Like, there's no questions asked. You got to, because I feel like number one, everyone's on their phones. So, like to maintain brand presence, you have to go the digital route.
What I've noticed in my career with agency stuff is like, and it's not going to apply everywhere, but like the larger the deals get and the bigger the companies get, like they're typically making it based on relationships and less on media. There is media that these people consume and make decisions on. So like white papers, books, industry newsletters, analysis. And you're in a perfect position to provide that as well, because you have a bird's eye view of like emerging trends. Like these decision makers, like whatever the equivalent of like HBR is, like in Taiwan, like they make this, there's like a prestige associated with that kind of decision making based on that kind of data.
It's almost like a C-suite. It's like a social media. It's just for C-suite.
Correct. That's interesting to reflect on, because you're like 15 lunches away from your goal.
Yeah, we're not that far off, to be honest. Especially like I just gave you the case study. One of our accounts is 4 accounts. It's like that's already a huge part. If we can get I would say 2 or 3 more of these, we're like pretty close, man.
So, I would just like hang out there and really try to determine, well, how many accounts like that exist? What are they doing? What are they consuming? How can I reach out to them every week or create for them every week to see if this thesis is correct? Sometimes I think like a balanced marketing diet, like we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to start some ads. It's appealing because you can kind of just do it, like the rails are there, but the rails for what you're talking about has never been created. Like, how do I create media for 15 people?
Yeah, it's crazy.
But that's the opportunity. Potentially what you're pointing to with me is like, I just need these 15 lunches. It's like, well, what about a 5,000 word essay that's like printed out in a nice little book that gets sent to them? Mm-hmm. What about a gift? What is the system of how the Rolodex develops? The details behind it. Is it positioned in a way that makes them look good and feel good for having consumed it?
Here in Asia, people really care about gifts for Chinese New Year's. And, if I can crack the relationship and get some of these lunches, like you said, and then maintain that relationship, and not even to like, because I know that a lot of them are going to be like, hey man, we're probably not going to hire you at the moment, but just to know I'm there. And just to send them a Christmas gift every year that I'm thinking of them, a handwritten card. When that opportunity does come, let's say their agency screws up or in-house, they're like, man, we need a switch. Then they think of me.
So here's how I've seen this executed at very high levels, which is like, there's a spreadsheet, there's 100 names. Some people have less, some people have more. These are the market makers for it's a very large market with very few levers, and those levers are the important people. The goal is to create relationships so they're your top of mind. It's not to sell, it's to be top of mind. So on the other side of the spreadsheet, you have levers, and it could be sharing something that you think's relevant to them. Okay, that happens 4 times a year. It could be running into them at an event that happens twice a year. It could be gifts that happens twice a year. We're trying to get something for each name that your company, we're trying to like build this distribution to the key people ourselves from scratch. And I think the key thing is like for a lot of us founders, because this is such hard work, and I'm speaking to myself, I'd rather post on Instagram, sure, because I just know the rails. I just send that photo that we did over here. But I know if I can be top of mind for these 100 people, I'm going to get the 15 deals within 6 months. And it's going to materialize because I have a track record. I'm actually just making a system out of what's already worked. And so you've described to me a system that works to get the premier clients. I would want to build that system out and like look at it and be like, because it's going to be a little bit scary because it's a little unclear. Like, does sending 4 gifts to this dude actually make any sense? And it's like, I mean, that's what's, you know what I mean? Like, but then it's like, okay, now we have a budget. Now we have someone in the office that's responsible for this. We're tracking it. We've got metrics. And this is how you grow a high-level agency in Taiwan is you have to build personal relationships.
Yeah.
And so then if you're like, well, if I'm going to post on Instagram, maybe that's part of it. I'll share the post with them, but then I got to write something that makes sense for them.
Yeah. It has to be personalized. They don't want to consume content you're feeding everybody else.
There you go.
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting thing. I mean, I've seen so many people just crush with this.
Yeah.
At high levels because your scale path is moving up from smaller clients to larger clients. The decision making is different. The sales cycle's longer. The pricing, everything's, evolving in that direction. And this is, to me, is the marketing portion, which it just doesn't look like basic marketing. It looks like all the great things about you that these people respect when they have a relationship with you. It's like, well, first I have to get the relationship. So how do I do that? A lot of people send, what's the book that has helped you generate the most results over your career for your clients? Maybe it's just that book once a quarter to all 100 people with a handwritten note for that person. And then it's an email. Did you see this HBR thing? Or you really care about Taiwan. Maybe there's some crossover there. It's like, well, these out of the 100 people, 20 of them are also interested in growing Taiwan's overall economy. So now we're just talking about growing Taiwan. 20 of them care about charity. These people care about charity. These people care about religion. These people care about sports. Okay, now it's like, shit, dude, like now we got levers. And so your assistant's on it where it's like, okay, we got to buy 50 books. And of course you want to keep it in budget. I think there's thoughtful things that you can do that are free.
Yeah, book is like $10.
And sharing a summary of some great stuff that looks like you just emailed that person, that's free. Well, not free, but
I love the brainstorming. And I just want to share with you a funny story.
Yeah.
Like literally like what you just said actually happened with Amazon Taiwan.
There you go.
Amazon Taiwan, an employee saw a podcast episode I did on my nonprofit with a famous podcaster here. And then she private messaged me and she goes, "Hey, James, like first time I saw the podcast, oh my gosh, like I cannot believe I had no idea you were doing all this stuff. You guys are doing the soup kitchen every 2 weeks for the homeless people here. You're visiting the orphanage and you're doing the Christmas giving tree program for 2,000 people here." They're like, "Count us in. Amazon Taiwan will participate in your next year's giving tree program." And I was just like, whoa.
I'm building out this idea that I've seen so many times. I haven't made a framework for it, but I call it the Rolodex hustle. And it's what is at the core of some of the most powerful companies I've ever encountered. For the benefit of the listener, here's the reason why what you said just works, especially at higher levels. Because the last thing high-powered individuals want to do when they're at a conference or when they're consuming content is be vetting vendors. This is not fun, for lack of a better term, and often something that they don't actually do the work. They're just the decision maker at the end. So what they want to talk about is what they're passionate about. And the reason that's important, so if it's, you mentioned you go to church, that could be something. You mentioned you're a big athlete, that could be something. Charity. There's all these amazing ways to have conversations with people. The way to build a relationship with someone is to be with them. And if you're just talking about whether or not we can do business together, that conversation will be curtailed relative to a conversation about triathlon or Taiwan government or strategy on how they're going to grow their business.
Yeah.
Or interesting trends on the Amazon platform. So if you can figure that out about your relationship prospect, then build a relationship around that. You'll be more top of mind.
Yeah. I think one pain point for me personally is like, I feel like sometimes mentally speaking, I'm just like, man, I don't want to be that guy like at the conference trying to network with everybody and just try to be a sales guy. Like I want to be authentic. I want to keep it real. And I want to just let my performance speak for itself. But I mean, over the course of this conversation, everything that you're saying actually really resonates with me. And I'm kind of looking at it from a very different optic right now. And like you said, it's not like you're not trying to come across as a sales guy. Like I think the intention what you're talking about is no, go after them in a really authentic way in the things that they're actually interested in.
Exactly.
As opposed to trying to sell them from the get-go. It's like, no, I'm not trying to sell you.
It's very persuasive when you're not trying to sell.
Yeah.
One of the ways that people can employ this idea is, so say you bump into someone you could really help with your service.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if you want to talk business, I too feel that emotion. I never do that. Like the most success I ever had at conferences, industry conferences, I would talk about travel with everybody. And they would light up. We sold industrial furniture. Who wants to talk about industrial furniture, man?
And nobody want to talk about my bull.
No. So I remember I was at this conference and like the light bulb went off for me. I was bored. They were bored. It was awkward, and I was like, guys, I actually just spent the last 6 months in Bali. I know it sounds weird, and they lit up. Oh my God, we went to our honeymoon in Bali and then they loved Indonesia and we started talking about it. And now we like have each other in the phone. It's like, oh, this is so cool. You guys are into travel. Who's not into travel? I wanted to roll a quick ad here because I just got off a call with the team at Remote First Recruiting. And the work that they're doing is incredible. The average placement for our clients at remotefirstrecruiting.com is 21 days. That means if you're hiring internationally, you could have your next amazing team member in just 3 weeks working with you to grow your business. They're telling me that lately, a lot of bootstrappers are hiring sales reps, bookkeepers, BDRs, SDRs, and customer success managers. And the primary region we're focused on, and the majority of these hires right now at Remote First Recruiting are coming from Latin America. So an incredible value, super high English skills, and people that can get integrated in your business in short order. So you don't have to take our word for it. You can check out our shout out in Rob Walling's amazing book, The SaaS Playbook, where he talks about one of the best places to go is remotefirstrecruiting.com. We've been doing this since 2020, whether it's project-based or long-term contracts. We can do permanent placements or contracting. We can work within your budget to get you the global talent that you need to take that next step forward in business. We hire for all kinds of roles, and getting started is super easy. Just book a 15-minute call with our head recruiter since 2020, Greg Valentine. He's an amazing guy, actually been friends with Ian since forever. And it's a pleasure working with him because he knows what he's doing. He knows what bootstrappers want and need, and he can get that next team member in your business in 21 days. How incredible. You're just a 15-minute phone call away. And it's really fun to talk to Greg because he knows what he's talking about. So if you're curious to learn more, head on over to remotefirstrecruiting.com. Back to this concept, I think there's a really big difference in the table positioning if you're at a networking event. If you just talk passionately about their industry and what's happening, like they're deeply invested in that. Forget about what you guys do. You know this, but like just kind of saying it for the podcast's sake, I think that's incredibly persuasive when you show that you care about the thing itself and that you get a bird's eye view. Actually, you have more data than they do because you're seeing 20, 30, 40 companies. They're seeing one.
Yeah.
And so now it's like, here's where I think Amazon's going right now. For our clients, we're deeply concerned about this stuff. Do you guys encounter that? So then immediately trying to find some common ground, like learning from them. That's the final judo move, right? Is like, what can they teach you, right? Because you're trying to learn the most you can. They're elite. I'm sure they got some problems, but they're also elite in a way to get into where they've gotten. And ultimately, you can minister to the dominant cultural force too by they should feel good and they should feel prestigious for having met you and heard your content. You can take the hit on their behalf. I'm the guy who's not going to look good right now, but I'm going to help you look good,
Exactly. And I think so that actually the seminar I just gave last week, the reaction was very positive, and I think people were kind of shocked because it's the first time they ever heard. And this was with the e-commerce the nonprofit organization of Taiwan that held this event. So it's actually a very public event. So when their employees and their whole team saw the event, and they were just like, they told me afterwards, they're like, we're bringing you back. They're like, dude, like what you gave out there was a master class, and we want more of you. We could probably get ready for your next seminar. That's what they said. We want you to do a next one, a 3-hour one on branding, and then we want to set up all these other ones. And so for me, it's kind of like, this is where the payoff comes from, being authentic and actually really wanting to help. Because, for most people, a lot of seminars are just funnels to basically purchase your service.
Well, and the reason that doesn't work is because that's not what your 15 people are doing. They're actually trying to learn.
Exactly. So, and that's why every meeting that I take, I really just try to, it's like, I love what you said earlier. It's like, you don't love to sell. I'm not really trying to sell because I know that if you're not the right target audience, we're not going to be a good fit. It's like dating.
Well, also because you're talking about 6-7 figure deals. You don't close people in a short amount of time. That's not how it works. So then that's why we're like mapping out this process over the course of a year.
Yes.
We've got a long sales cycle and we have to approach it differently. So what I'm thinking, every time I'm doing a talk or whatever, I'm just thinking about my 15, right? Like how,
I love,
for example, when I speak at this event next week, I'm going to get it videoed and then I'm going to send it to the 15 or the 100.
Yeah.
And I'm going to like position it for them and I'm going to like give them the skip point. I'm going to be like, at 14 minutes, I'm starting. I don't know if you guys have seen this. So now we're positioning it. Next month, they get a book. Next month, you invite them to racquetball.
Ooh,
it's just 15 people.
You're killing it. You're giving me a lot of ideas.
Let us know how you got in Taiwan from America. What's the connection there?
I first moved out here to Taipei when one of my friends, they're actually musicians, entertainers, and they say, yo, man, you make some really dope films. You won a bunch of film awards. And can we get you out here? They're like, we'll pay for everything. We got you an apartment, pay for your plane ticket. And I'm like, wait, what? A free trip? Oh, hell no. I was like, this is crazy. And I did a feature-length documentary on the sport of mixed martial arts called Fight Life. And it was like a pretty groundbreaking documentary back in the day. And I had just sold the movie, all the rights. So I was like, I'm not doing anything. They literally got me the ticket. I flew out here and I liked it. And then I decided to stay here. And I had my own film production company here for, a good number of years. And then one day, Amazon Taiwan came knocking on my door. They said, hey, man, we heard about this American dude that's doing all these like commercials for like NVIDIA, like a lot of the big brands, American brands. They're like, can you help us? We're not really good at marketing. We don't know how to make these American style videos. Can you come give some talks, give some seminars? And the next thing you know, I'm out like, giving seminars on branding to all these companies that are kind of like VIP. And one thing led to another. They started wanting to hire me. And in Taiwan, it's not like in the US where they'd like to hire different companies for different things. They prefer to hire one company for everything. So literally, they don't want to go to McDonald's for burgers,
Why
KFC
is that?
for fried chicken.
What's your take on that?
Trust. Asian people are all about relationships. Once they have that trust, you basically have the keys to the kingdom. Whereas in the US, we care about specialization. We specified a certain thing. You're not going to go to McDonald's to get a salad. That's just not where we go. But for here, that's just a culture here. And so that presented an opportunity where a lot of my clients on the branding side, they're like, yo, can we hire you to do our Amazon? And I'm like, at the time I was like, yo, man, I'm not touching that. Like, I don't really know too much about Amazon. I know you want to give me money, but sorry, man, I'm an ethical person. I'm not going to to and pretend like I know something that I don't. And I was very honest. And they said, okay, well, if you ever do, we got you. And, lo and behold, one day I'm at a birthday party and I meet this guy. I'm like, hey, what's up, man? I'm James. And he's like, hey, my name is Eugene. I'm from Australia and I do Amazon. And I'm like, you do Amazon? Oh, okay. All right. I was like, let's see what this guy's made of. That's probably full of, there's a lot of fake gurus out there who say they do this and do that. One day we met at a coffee shop and I literally said, hey, man, I want to take over Amazon here in Taiwan. My company does all the branding for a lot of the brands here. I don't have an Amazon guy. And I said, are you down to give it a shot? I'm going to test you. We did a handshake on the spot. And I said, I'm going to give you one account. Don't F this up. And literally, he killed it. And the rest is history. From that point on, I started taking on clients.
I just want to thank you for sharing your business with us. This is really cool to meet you and to hear about what you're on about. I like what you're working on. I think it's cool. It's cool that what you guys are establishing yourselves as in this amazing place. So,
I mean, definitely want to thank you for having me. And I just want to say that you guys have really built such a solid foundation in community. And to be honest, I'm super impressed. Later this year, when I do go to the conferences and meet you guys face to face, I'm looking forward to that. And it's just I'm just impressed that you guys can build this many, so much micro communities in so many places and give people so much value. Literally everyone tells me, they're like, dude, at DC, you're going to not only get your money's worth, but so much more. That's literally what everybody says. So I feel like you guys have done a phenomenal job when you mentioned earlier of not selling. You got people out here selling for you. You don't even got to do the sales anymore. And because you have created such an awesome environment where people have gotten so much value and, and gained so much knowledge and wisdom from the relationships. And, you guys as the conferences I hear are legendary. So I'm looking forward to that, man. So appreciate you having me on the show, man.
Yeah, my pleasure. I'll see you maybe in October or maybe sometime sooner. And good luck finding your 15. And I can't wait to hear what they have to say about all the things you've been building.
Yeah, man. Thanks so much.
Cheers.